The Man in the Country, Part 4, the final chapter. I sat alone, barricaded inside the dark and dank dress shop, trying to come up with a plan. God, I can't think with all this noise. The damn dead are outside banging with the force of a high school marching band. Effing rotting bastards. Calm yourself. Keep your cool. Those flesh bags outside are just stirred up because they know I'm in here, wanting to tear me limb from limb. Don't give the bastards the satisfaction. Get yourself up and see if there's another way out of this shithole. I quickly composed myself and got up off the cool, damp floor. Visibility was next to nothing inside the room. I almost tripped and broke my neck fumbling around, trying to find the lighter in my bag. Finally, my finger grazed the cool metal of the Zippo at the bottom of the bag. I flipped it open and lit up the room. It was a cluttered mess. Mannequins and turned-over clothes racks strewn the floor. Blood was smeared all over the walls, and thick pools of blood deposited in different parts of the room. Haven't seen any flesh bags yet, though. I continued forward towards the back room and panned to my left, checking behind the counter. On the ground sat a woman. She was dead, but she wasn't undead. Chunks of flesh were missing from different parts of her body, and a handgun was in her hand, lying next to her, with a bullet-sized hole in her temple. Looks like she took care of herself before she turned into one of those zombified bastards. Can't say that I blame her. The name tag on her blouse read Tammy, matches the name on the sign, Tammy's Fine Dresses, for the modern and vintage woman. Well, it looks like the captain went down with her ship, so to speak. Well, Tammy, I hope there's a way out of here, through the back, I said aloud in a smart-assy tone. I pushed the curtain aside to the back room and saw a rotting corpse feasting on the body of an employee. The flesh bag didn't notice me, so while it was busy enjoying its all-you-can-eat buffet, I unsheathed my knife and drove it into its skull, dispatching it instantly. I then quickly did the same to the poor lady that was being feasted on before she could come back and take a bite out of my ass. I noticed a ladder leading up to the roof and climbed the rungs. Once on top, I assessed the situation. I hesitantly peeked over the side to the front of the shop. The horde of the undead had grown, and it was just a matter of time before they broke in. Now I was safe on top the roof, unless these brain-dead bastards learned to climb. But I couldn't stay up here forever. Brandy was counting on me to save her, and my baby was just the next street over. I was so effing close, I can't give up now. I scanned around thinking of what to do. To the left of me was an apartment building. It wasn't connected to the shop. There was a mid-sized gap between the two buildings. I walked over to see exactly how far apart the buildings were. There was a fire escape on the side of the building that might make this easier for me. The buildings were close enough to where I think I could leap across and grab onto the railing of the fire escape. I either make it or I fall, probably breaking my hip and getting feasted on by the ravenous horde that waited below. Let's effing do this. I pumped myself up and ran towards the fire escape, leaping across the gap like an Olympic gold medal was on the line. I stretched out at my arm and barely grabbed onto the railing, but I held on. I managed to pull myself over the railing and scaled the fire escape up to the roof. Thuds of undead flesh banged up against the windows of certain apartments I passed on the way to the top. There were a couple apartments, however, that were dead-free, and I was able to gather up some more useful supplies for our journey. I made it to the roof and scaled down the fire escape on the other side of the building, making my way down to the street. Thankfully, the massive horde of the undead was still preoccupied with still trying to break into the dress shop, thinking I'm still inside. I was able to move about the street without incident, darting and ducking between cars, passing the death and destruction as I made my way to the mall. Fired out cars with crispy, burning flesh permeated the air like I was at some cannibalistic, macabre barbecue. Make no mistake, this was a graveyard, and these wrecked and mangled hunks of alloy and metal that the dead were encased in, their tombs. I spotted the mall in the distance, and as I turned the corner of Grove Street, I started to breathe a little easier. I was nearly there. I quickly and carefully made my way to the mall's parking lot, spotting flesh bags shambling in different parts of the property. They were not clumped up, at least. If I planned this out correctly, I could make my way inside without much trouble. I crouched down and slowly made my way to the front doors of the mall, dispatching the few flesh bags I came across with my knife. More than halfway through the parking lot, I noticed a lookout on the mall's roof. They motioned me to the front doors. Thankfully, they had seen me and had someone waiting for me to let me in. I was wondering how I was going to get in for a second there. But at the door stood a brick shithouse of a gentleman, and he ushered me inside. Thankfully, I wasn't left out there with just my dick in my hand. He tried to commence with the pleasantries, but I had no time for it. The first thing I asked was where was Brandy Rush? Is she still here? Is she still alive? I'm her husband, and I've traveled through death and decay to find her. Before the man could answer, I heard a scream in the distance, calling my name. It was her. It was my love, the person I loved most in this world, who I never thought I'd ever see again, was miraculously running towards me. She jumped into my outstretched arms, and we hugged for what seemed like an eternity. I promised her from there on out I'd never leave her side, that I would protect her no matter what, even die trying. After a few minutes, she showed me around and introduced me to the rest of the survivors. There weren't many, but they seemed like good people. Well, that is, except for the person supposedly in charge, a smug, lazy prick named Donovan. He was the head of security when this place was still a functional mall, so I guess he thinks that makes him king shit. I barely met the bastard, and I can tell he's an incompetent prick. All he does is sit there and ask other people to get their hands dirty, and he's power hungry. Always screaming at people if they do anything that displeases him, even the most simplest of things that aren't even worth getting worked up about. And he's stupid. That's the most dangerous thing about him. His ideas, the things that come out of his mouth, he's just a pure jackass. This is not a winning combination. He's power hungry, incompetent, and dumb as a box of rocks. I told Brandy to take me somewhere private so we could talk. She brought me to her tent. Everyone had their own. We went inside and I zipped it closed. I sat her down on the cot and told her we have to get the hell out of here. She was confused at first, but I explained my apprehensions about Donovan, and I believed the dumb prick would get us killed sooner or later. She did agree that he was a dumbass and an asshole, and that this wasn't the best of situations. I told her a plan I had been thinking of on my way to get her. I reminded her about the cabin on the lake. It was perfect for us, a perfect place to hide and try to survive this thing. The cabin was in Lake Rushing Falls, about 20 miles from the mall. It was perfect because it sat on an island in the middle of the lake, far from the shore. It had been in my mother's side of the family for generations, always well stocked, usually filled with a year's worth of supplies. for whoever would pop in and out to use it. Maybe someone else in the family made it. We'll see. I asked her thoughts on my plan, and she agreed. We need to get away from large confined areas like the middle of the city, and we need to get away from people, especially the dumb ones like Donovan. We agreed to leave in the morning, find some transportation, and head to the lake. Just as we were finishing our conversation, I heard a blood-curdling scream. We unzipped the tent and popped out, and saw a good-sized number of flesh bags staggering through the door. I saw the brick shithouse who let me in screaming, "Why? Why? How did this happen?" You see, the doors weren't broken into or knocked down by the dead. The dumb big bastard forgot to lock the door when he let me in. I saw him there standing, still screaming, "Why?" when the dead started feeding on him. I shouted at him, "Because you're a dumbass, that's why. Remember to lock the door next time, you ass." I looked down at Brandy and said, "I told you these dumbasses were going to get us killed." I told her to grab her things, and we started running to the other end of the mall. Just before we reached the other exit, we came across one of those giveaway cars. The banner above it said, "Purchase your raffle ticket now for a chance to win this brand new car on Tuesday the 19th. Well, I'll be damned, that's perfect. Today's the 19th. I told Baby to get in and broke the case that was holding the keys, and we drove through the exits and headed towards the lake. While we drove through the doors, I noticed Donovan. He was being surrounded, and the dead began to feast on him. Just one less dumbass in the world, I thought. We made our way onto the highway and towards the cabin, passing the carnage and burning decay of what once was a thriving, beautiful city. It took about an hour, but we made it to the lake without incident. We gathered our supplies and found a boat to get us to the cabin. A flesh bag surprised us when we first got on, but I dispatched him quickly. We made it to the island and walked up to the cabin. We searched the grounds, but sadly, there was no one else who made it. Doesn't mean they're dead, but it's not looking good. It was me and Baby. Yes, we lost plenty, but we were still alive. And this place was perfect. We have no idea what the future has in store for us. But what we do know is we'll face it together. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.